Hello guys, welcome back to this channel. So today I'll be showing you how to draft Princess That, and I'll be showing you three methods that I use. All right, I'll be showing you the classic ones, and I will also show you how to draft a Princess That Bustier. So without further ado, let's get started. So here guys, I have my pattern paper on fold, and I'll start drafting a basic bodice on this pattern. If you don't know how to do that, I have a video on this channel on how to draft a basic bodice pattern, so you can go ahead and watch that. I'm going to drop the link in the description box below. So I'll just go ahead and measure from that start line, which is going to serve as the shoulder line too. I'll measure from there to the waist line, and also I'll measure out the chest line, the bust point, and I'll go ahead and also draft out the under bust line, and I'll go ahead and label all. So next I'll go ahead and measure the shoulder line, which is 7.5 in this case, and I'll do the same thing on the chest line here. I'll measure 7.5 and I'll connect it on a straight line, and this is where we are going to insert our armhole curve. All right, so I'll just go ahead and also create the neckline. I'm using the standard of 3 by 3 inches here. All right, and the next thing I'll do here is to come down by 1/2 inch on the shoulder line right here to create a shoulder slant, and I'm just going to connect that to the neckline area. So here we have our shoulder slant, and we can go ahead and draft the first classic Princess That. All right, so the first thing we are going to do on this pattern is to come to the bust point and insert the nipple to nipple measurements, or what they call the bust pan. All right, for this person it is 8 inches, divided by 2 is 4. So I just went ahead to insert it on the bust point, on the bust and the waistline, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it on a straight line like so. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is to come to this armhole area, and we are going to find the midpoint. And since it's 8 in this case, the midpoint is going to be 4 inches. All right, and the next thing we are going to do is to come in on that midpoint. We are going to come in by about 0.75 or even 1/2 inches. All right, so I used 1/2 inches here. I came in by 1/2 inches, and the next thing we are going to do is to connect the shoulder line to that point that we marked, and from that point we are going to create our armhole curve using a curve ruler. The next thing we are going to do is to come to the bust point, and we are going to link it up with the midpoint of the armhole. So you are going to get a curve ruler, and you're going to use it to link it up together. So here I'm just using a pattern master, and I'm going to link from the armhole area. I'm going to link it up to that bust area. Okay, so just go ahead and do that, and you have this shape right there. So guys, this next step is also very important. So in order for us not to have shortage when we are joining both pieces together, it is recommended that you come to the armhole area here and you extend this line upward like so. And what I'm going to do next is to pick my tape measure, and I'm going to mark 1 inch upward. Okay, so after extending the line by 1 inch, we need to recreate the armhole curve, and I will just place the curve ruler right there and recreate the armhole curve. And here I'm just going ahead to shade off the previous armhole curve, and what we just did here is going to ensure that we don't have shortage on our fabrics when we are joining together. And the next thing I'm going to do here is to insert the bust circumference right on the chest line there, and I'm going to add 1.5 inches allowance, and I'm going to come to the waist measurement. I will ignore the under bust. All right, and I will measure out the waist measurement of this person, and I will also add an allowance of 1.5 inches there. And the next thing to do is to connect the point together. And that is it for this first method, and what I'll do next is to cut out this pattern. So as you can see, this method is very easy to draft and you can use it for any basic style. So this is what it looks like. So I'll just indicate that this part is on fold and I'll label it A and B. And for this second method, I'll start by inserting the nipple to nipple measurements, and it is 4 in this case. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect it on a straight line right from the bust point to the mid waist, and right here on the armhole I'm going to go ahead and create the armhole curve. So the next thing is to connect the midpoint on the armhole to the bust point. So I'll just go ahead and use the straight part of the ruler to connect the point together. So the next thing we are going to do is to insert dart on this pattern, and first we're going to come to the waistline and we are going to insert 1/2 inch dart on the waistline. All right, so just like we insert a normal dart on a basic bodies, we're going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides of the straight line, and we're going to come to the bust point and come down by 1 inch, and we are going to connect the dart legs to that 1 inch marked, just like I'm doing here. And next, guys, we're coming to the armhole area and we are going to also insert 1/2 inch on both sides of the straight line here. So I'm just going to mark 1/2 inch here and also mark 1/2 inch here. All right, and I'm going to, come up by 1 inch right from the bust point, come up by 1 inch. All right, and we are going to connect those 1/2 inch marked to that 1 inch. So go ahead and connect it like so. So right here we've already inserted the dart here and also here on the waistline. So I'm just going to go ahead and shade it off, and those parts that we are shading off, we are not going to use it, we're going to cut it off. Alright, so the next thing we are going to do is to extend this part by 1 inch so that we don't have shortage on our fabrics when we are joining together. So I just extended it by 1 inch, and because we have done this, what we need to do is to recreate another armhole curve just like we did for the first method. Alright, so I'm just going to place the curve ruler right on the 1 inch extension, and I will link it to the chest line. And with that, we've been able to create another armhole curve. And up next, we are going to go ahead and insert quarter of the bust measurement and with allowance, and quarter of the waist measurement. Remember, we took that on the waist, so we are going to return that and with allowance. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect that, the actual measurement and with allowance. And next, I'll cut out the pattern. And this is what it looks like after cutting through the pattern. And you can see that this method is also very simple, and because we inserted that here on this pattern, unlike the first method, it's going to give our garment a good fitting. Alright guys, so for the princess dart bustier, I have my pattern drafted already, and I'm just going to go ahead and label every part of the pattern paper. All right, and the next thing we are going to do, as usual, is to go ahead and insert the nipple to nipple measurement. So here I just went ahead to insert 4 inches right from the bust point to the mid waist, and I'm connecting it together on a straight line. And up next, I'm going to connect right from the bust point to the midpoint of the armhole area. So the next thing to do, guys, is to insert the dart on this pattern, and we are going to insert the dart on one part of this pattern. So here on the under bust, I inserted 2 inches. As I said earlier, all the dart is coming towards this side. And the same 2 inches dart we are going to insert on the waist area also, and I'm just going to go ahead and connect it on a straight line like so. And after doing that, guys, the next thing to do is to connect the bust point to the under bust using a curve ruler. So get a curve ruler and you're going to link the under bust and the bust point together. And after connecting it, this is what you would have. You can see that the bust area is already coming to shape, and you can use this French cuff if that is what you have. Alright guys, so I lost some of my clips along the way and I had to redraft the whole process all over again to where we stopped. Alright, so here's the shape that we have already brought out, and the next thing we are going to do is to come to this mid point right here. Alright, and we are going to come down from that midpoint. We are going to come down by 2 inches. So you are going to place your tape rule right here and you are going to come down by 2 inches, and I'll just note that 2 inches area right here. And right on that 2 inches that we marked, we are going to place our straight ruler on it and we are going to connect it down to the bust point. So here we have our dart, and I'm just going to go ahead and shade off all the unnecessary parts that we have there, and those parts that I shade off, we are not going to use them. It is useless, okay? And in order to avoid shortage when we are joining our fabric, we are going to return that 2 inches dart that we took on the armhole area there. So right here, I'm just going to place my tape rule right on that point, and I'm going to extend the line upward like so, and I'm going to mark 2 inches extension. All right, so that's the 2 inches extension that I marked, so that when we are joining both pieces together, we don't have shortage. So what I will do next is to recreate the armhole. All right, so just place your curve ruler and you're going to recreate the armhole. And here I'm going to go ahead and shade off this previous armhole curve, and the next thing we are going to do is to insert the horizontal measurement. So here on the chest line, I'm going to insert the bust circumference, cut off this the bust circumference with allowance, and I'm going to come to the waist area also, and I'm going to insert the waist, cut off the waist measurement, the waist circumference, and I'm going to add these 2 inches allowance that we had used with it, and plus also the seam allowance. And I'm going to connect each point together like so, and next I'm going to label this pattern. So this part is going to be A and here is B, and remember that our pattern is on fold. All right, so the next thing we need to do right now is to go ahead and cut out this pattern.